What's up everyone, it's Kelly and today I've got another swatch review for you. So today we are talking about Essie. I've got 3 new collections for you, 6 polishes each, so 18 polishes in total, and they are all new for spring 2023. So we've got the Unguilty Pleasures collection, we've got the Valentine's Day collection, which is called You Wish, and then we have their Cyber Society collection. So just a little bit of background info on Essie if you haven't heard of them before, which I would be very surprised because I would argue that they're potentially the most famous nail polish brand. Actually, I don't know. What do you think is more famous, Essie or OPI? I would argue that potentially Essie is more famous overall. But either way, they are a mainstream nail polish brand and all of their polishes are 8 free, meaning they are free of 8 of the potentially harmful ingredients that can be found in nail polish, and they are also vegan, meaning they do not use any animal derived ingredients. There are some conflicting claims as to whether or not they are cruelty free, so just something to keep in mind with the brand. So yeah, like I said, we've got 3 collections to go over, so I'm gonna go in collection order here, but then I'm gonna do my little comparison chart and show you them in order so that you can see the similarities between shades that are kind of similar. So yeah, mostly cream finishes, a couple of shimmers here and there, but yeah, let me just dive right into the swatches, so let's roll the footage. So as with all of my swatch and review videos, I am using base coat underneath all of my swatches just to protect my natural nail and prevent any stains. Today, it's the Orly Bonder base coat. So we'll start off with the Unguilty Pleasures collection because I loved the vibe of these colors. It was feeling a little bit like desert chic, which I think is one of my favorite vibes, and I think it's just so perfect for spring. This first color is called Caught in the Rain, and it's a really gorgeous sage green cream, and you can see the formula was so impressive. It was actually almost 1 coat coverage. It has a little bit of like a blue tinge to it, but it's very soft, it's very dusty, and I feel like this is just a perfect any time of year green, and I cannot get enough of it. Super self-leveling, super easy to work with. Next up we have the shade Unguilty Pleasures, which is the namesake of the collection, and this one is a gorgeous saturated teal shade. Again, you can see even just in the first coat, all of these gave me such nice opacity. Essie is definitely a great brand for nail art, but I also just really appreciate how self-leveling they are. You can see just how glossy and easy to work with they are. On that second coat, it was just so smooth, so perfect, and the color looks gorgeous. I feel like it matches Caught in the Rain so well, and I want to gradient these 2 colors. Next up, we have the shade To Me From Me, which is more of a dusty slate blue. It's definitely on the deeper side, and it's another gorgeous shade. Now, normally when I see this kind of color, I always think of autumn, but I feel like this shade is light enough that it is giving me a little bit of like a stormy, springy kind of vibe. So again, really impressive formula. I cannot say enough good things about the Essie formula these days. It is just such a remarkable difference from how it used to be, and you can just see in application, it's just so easy to work with, and it's so smooth and so glossy even before I put the top coat on. Moving on, we have the shade Home by 8, and this is a really interesting shade. It's not the most unique, but I do love when I see it. It's sort of that purpley brown color. I don't know if there's a name for this type of shade, but it almost reminds me of the Hershey's wrapper, where it kind of looks brown, it kind of looks purple, it has a little bit of dustiness to it, and this one, honestly, I would wear this as a 1 coater, but I did end up swatching it in 2 coats just to show you, but again, just really smooth, really workable, and a really gorgeous color. I don't know that it necessarily screams spring to me, but I do love recently wearing iridescent toppers over brown. For some reason, that just brings out so much color in an iridescent topper, so highly recommend it. Then we have the shade No To-Do, and this one is a dusty medium reddish brown. Now, for whatever reason, this type of brown on me always ends up looking more yellowish than I think it looks in real life. I think in real life this one definitely has a more dusty red look, but for some reason combined with my skin tone, I think it ends up making it look a little bit more of that like orangey brown kind of color. So just something to keep in mind. I do think that my swatch is accurate, but it's accurate to what it looks like on my skin tone. So it's always good to check out other skin tones or the skin tone that matches yours before you buy something, especially if you're buying online. And the final shade in this first collection is Snooze In, and and this one is a gorgeous, soft, peachy orange cream shade. And you can see again that opacity was really nice. It wasn't quite there in the first coat, but it was in 2 coats. And this is always the kind of color that I imagine in my head when I think of Essie. I always think of these like soft, neutral, any day of the year kind of colors. So I'm not surprised that they do this one very well. I feel like some brands would take a color this light and it would end up being a 3-coater, but this one was almost 1 coat. So very impressive, very good formula again. So I'm just going to jump into the next collection, which is the Cyber Society collection. I'm going to show you a comparison of all of the shades together at the end, so stay tuned for that. But this first shade is called NFT, which I've made my feelings clear on how I feel about NFT themed nail polishes in my OPI spring video. So if you don't know, check that out. But yeah, this is another orangey shade. This one definitely leans a little bit more into that standard orange color, and it does have a little bit of dustiness to it. It reminds me of like creamsicle orange kind of shade. And again, it gave me perfect coverage in 2 coats and it was so easy to work with. Next up in this collection, we have the shade In Our Domain, which is this sort of bubblegum pink cream shade, but it actually had a little bit more of a jelly-like formula to it. So you can see there's almost this squishy sheerness to the color. And I feel like this is the type of formula that Essie used to have, which I wasn't a huge fan of, but it did end up giving me good opacity in 2 coats. And I didn't see any visible nail line, but I wasn't sure if people wanted a more opaque look. So I ended up trying on a 3rd just to see what that looked like. And it pretty much looked the same. So I would just wear this one in full coverage at 2 coats. But I will say, compared to that super opaque formula that I had just been swatching, I wasn't a huge fan of this one, even though I do love that squishy jelly look. I just kind of wanted to keep it going with those super opaque creams. And then we've got the namesake of the collection, the Cyber Society polish, and this one is a cool toned purple. Again, you can see it almost had that jelly-like formula to it, and it was a little bit sheer in the first coat, but it did give me full coverage in the second, and I didn't mind the formula as much here because I am a huge sucker for a cool toned purple. I think this one is absolutely gorgeous, and I love that there is a drugstore version that anybody can just grab, because this is my favorite kind of color to wear on my nails, as evidenced by me doing a massive video of all of my cool toned purples. So this will be added to the list. Next up, we have the shade Hyperlinked, and this one is a turquoise cream shade, and we were pretty much back to that regular super opaque formula. This one was almost there in the first coat, but I did need a second for full coverage, and this is such a vibrant color. I think it skewed a little bit more warm on me. It had a little bit of that yellowy tone to it, but I think on cooler skin tones, this one might look a little bit more blue, so something to keep in mind. But yeah, this is a very bright shade. It makes me think of summer. Next up, we have the shade On the Download, and this one might be my favorite out of all of the shades that I tried today. It's a really, really soft, almost white base. It has that sort of jelly-like, crelly formula where it's somewhere in between cream and a jelly, and it had this really intense iridescent shimmer in it. It's so hard to see on camera, which is so frustrating because it's so stunning in real life, but it looks like this intense fuchsia, and then there's also these little extra flecks in there that give it a little extra sparkle. So I loved the way that it looked in 2 coats, but I was hoping you guys could see that shimmer a little bit more in a 3rd coat. So I did apply a 3rd coat. I loved the way it looked in 3 as well, but yeah, you can barely see that shimmer, which is so frustrating because it is so stunning. And the final shade in this collection is Geek Chic, and this one in the bottle, it kind of looks like a multi-chrome. It's sort of what I would call a light multi-chrome shade. It has this grayish base, and then it has a really intense color shift that, looking at it head on, looks green, but then it shifts into every color of the rainbow before settling onto pink. So in my swatch, I feel like it mostly looks like you see that green and that pink into purple. So here's what it looked like in 2 coats, and it was still pretty sheer, and this is how I would wear a polish like this because I do love a little bit of a sheer look, and it wasn't patchy at all. But I did do a 3rd coat just to show you guys what that looked like, and it did give me more opacity, but I will say it didn't show as much of that color shift on the nail as it did in the bottle, and it was reminding me a lot of the Orly Holiday 2022 collection, and I think that Orly did it a little bit better. So I'm not a huge fan of this one, but it is pretty. And the last collection that I'm sharing with you today is the You Wish collection, and this was for Valentine's Day 2023, but the shades are still available, so I wanted to swatch them anyway. This first shade is called Burning Love, and this is sort of a corally reddish orange color, and this was fully a one coat cream on me. It is so gorgeous. I love how vibrant it is. It's a classic any time of year color, but I just love how vibrant it is, and I just love that orangey tone to it. And next we have the shade You Wish, and I feel like this is the type of polish that I used to hate from Essie, but now I absolutely love it because I love a streaky pearlized finish. So this one is another reddish orange color, but then we have this intense shimmer in there that mostly looks like it's pink, but I'm wondering if it's just silver and having it in that base almost turned it pink. But it is so gorgeous. You can see the brush strokes in it, which I absolutely love. I think it kind of elongates the nail and looks so cool. And I feel like this would look so gorgeous mattified, but again, I just love that sort of orangey tone to it. I think it really brings a summery vibe to the color. And then we have the shade Flirt with Freedom, which is a really interesting, I don't know how to even describe this color. It's sort of like a duochrome that has an intense blue purple shift, but the base color is a little bit more of like a reddish maroon kind of color. So together it creates a really interesting mix of cool and warm tones. And I feel like I've been seeing this type of shade a lot, and I liked it at first, but the more I look at it, the more I'm not sure that I love it, just because, I don't know, there's something about it that feels a little old-fashioned. So I don't know, I gotta play around with it more. The formula was good. It's another brushstrokey polish, but I feel like the color isn't speaking to me anymore. Next we have the shade Fuel Your Desire, and this one is a gorgeous orchid cream shade. A little bit sheer in the first coat, but did even out into and gave me perfect coverage, and I love this type of cool toned pinky color that we saw a lot in 2023 for Valentine's Day. I think that's a kind of color that we haven't really seen as a Valentine's Day color in the past. So I appreciate that brands are bringing it out this year because I think it's really gorgeous, and it's also kind of adjacent to purple, which is, of course, my favorite nail polish color. So of course I'm gonna love it. Speaking of purple, we've got one right here. This is called No Ex-pectations, and this one is a really dusty bluish purple kind of shade. Again, just really easy to work with, really smooth, gave me perfect coverage in 2 coats. I love that dustiness to it. I think it might look a little bit cooler toned and a little bit bluer on people with a warmer skin tone, but it was definitely leaning more purple on me, and I definitely didn't mind that. This again kind of feels like a wintry, maybe a transition color into spring, but I still think it's really gorgeous. And last but not least, we have the shade License to Thrill, and this one is a really deep, rich blue cream shade, and this was another one that was fully one coat coverage on me, and it ended up being a little bit thicker than the rest of the polishes, so it wasn't as workable as the other shades, but it still ended up being fairly easy. It's just the last shade that I used, and of course it was the least leveling formula, so it ended up just giving me a little bit more trouble, but really pretty shade, and I think this is another great one for nail art because it's so opaque. So here are all 3 of the collections together. I wanted to put them in order so you could see the shades that were maybe a little bit similar to each other and see how they compared. So it actually ended up working out pretty nicely. We've got all of the greenish blue shades on the top row, we've got the pinky purples on the second row, then we've got the orangey reds in the third row, and then the last row is sort of the neutral shades. So we've got like the grays and the browns there. And honestly, overall, I am really impressed with these. I love all of the colors. I think that Essie focuses a little bit less on making shades for the season and focuses a little bit more on making staple shades that people can use whenever they want to use a particular color. So that I do really appreciate for them, and I like that they came out with a bunch of different collections to kind of cover all of the shades. I mean, I feel like we get a very specific color story in all of these collections, which is kind of interesting to see because they're not the usual shades that I would expect from Essie, but I do appreciate them branching out. Definitely mostly creams here with only a few shimmers, and I would say their shimmers are probably on the lower end of the scale in terms of my favorites, but if you are looking for good quality, good coverage creams, I think almost all of these are really good. So yeah, those are the polishes, and overall I really enjoyed these collections and I really enjoyed the polishes. My gut instinct when I first get a new Essie polish is this thought that I'm not gonna like it, and that's just because way in the past they had a formula that I didn't enjoy. It wasn't really self-leveling and it wasn't as beginner friendly. I also think their formula is improved just by having their newer brush, which is wide and flat and has a rounded tip. But in general, I just think their formula is so much better now, and every time I use Essie now, even though that's my first instinct to be like, I don't really like Essie, I'm always impressed with how they apply. I think this is a very beginner friendly formula. I think it's also really nice that it's very accessible because it's in a lot of drugstores. So yeah, overall, I mean, the colors aren't crazy unique or particularly new to the nail polish world, but they have a good selection and they're just good quality. And I also, this is such a little random thing, but I like when they do the special edition caps where there's like a little design on them, which a couple of these do have. I just think that's a fun little touch. But anyway, these polishes come in 13.5 milliliter bottles. Like I said, they do have a wide flat brush with a rounded tip now, and the price does vary based on where you get them because they are available in a lot of stores. Online, it seems they generally hover around $9.99 USD, although I did see the Unguilty Pleasures collection on sale for $7.59 USD on Amazon. So I'm gonna link a few different options down below. They're on Amazon, they're on Target, they're at a bunch of brick and mortar stores, but they're also in a lot of places online. So definitely check out the description if you are looking for a place to buy them online. But yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys think of these polishes. Which of the three collections do you like the best? And also, which of the polishes is your absolute favorite out of all of them? Leave it all in the comments, we can chat about it. If you enjoy my swatch and review videos, please give this one a thumbs up. It lets me know I'm doing a good job. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing. I put out new videos every Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. I also have a second YouTube channel, my vlog channel, which you can check out if you are looking to see a little bit about my life outside of nail polish. And of course, a huge shout out to my supporters on Patreon, my royal astronomer Amanda M, as well as my cosmic admirals Rocket Man's daughter, Paula, Ken, Rosie, and Courtney. I really appreciate your support, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye. So, fun fact, I kind of touched on this in my video, but fun fact, I used to not own any Essie polishes at all. So they were actually one of the first brands that I purchased from just because of the accessibility. I used to buy my nail polishes at the drugstore, at the dollar store. So when I was first building my collection, I did have a decent amount of Essie, and I feel like when people gave me gifts, it was always a nail polish gift when I was first getting into nail polish, because that's a great gift to give to somebody who likes nail polish. But a lot of the time those gifts were Essie as well, so I did have a pretty decent sized collection of Essie polishes. But it got to a point, once I had a decent amount of polishes in general, I kind of realized that I didn't love Essie. I just felt like the formula was not easy to work with, and some of the shades were just a little bit too sheer and patchy, and they just weren't self-leveling. So I actually ended up giving away all of my Essies. I don't remember which move it was, but it was either when I moved to Georgia or when I moved away from Georgia. No, was it when I moved away from Georgia? But I know at some point I got rid of all of my Essies, and I did do a video where I was showing my whole nail polish collection, and I still get questions all the time about why I don't have Essie, which now I do. I have a decent amount of Essies now, and that's just because I gave them another try. I think during 2020 when we were all at home, I tried them again and I ended up really liking them. So yeah, the formula has definitely improved. I see a lot of people in the comments of my Essie reviews saying that they don't like Essie because they didn't like the old formula. So I always say, if you didn't like the old formula, you might like it now, and I recommend it. I don't know, I think they're pretty good now. I think they're a good staple brand, but I'm still curious if you guys think they're more famous than OPI. So let me know in the comments, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!